The unreleased secrets of Vanilla WoW Episode 2. Oh. Okay. Let's see what this is. Oh, I know where he is. I know where he is.
What's up? Mad Season here, back with another video for you. So, under the pretense of maybe, possibly, Season of Discovery going into a ClassicPlus direction, recently I did a video going over some of the secret cut content from Vanilla WoW that could be contenders.
Cool.
Some people think that the most classic that you could possibly get would be content that the original developers planned, and thanks to some helpful people in the comments, it turns out there's much more that I missed, so I wanted to do a follow-up video here.
Okay.
First, starting with Ulduar. Ulduar is a facility constructed by the Titans, which are the godlike creators of Azeroth, as a prison for one of the old gods, the king of BJs, Yogg-Saron. The Titans wanted to shape and order the world, sort of, and the old gods opposed them and sought to corrupt it, and eventually the Titans gained the upper hand and started imprisoning the old gods, and Ulduar was created to house Yogg-Saron. So eventually, players would of course visit this in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, but believe it or not, it was planned to be in Vanilla World of Warcraft. In fact, it was to be its own entire continent south of Kalimdor.
Really? I keep getting so surprised at how much actually was planned for Vanilla. So Ulduar was planned to be like actually down here in Kalimdor, yeah. That's big as well. What's the Undermine there?
What you're looking at is a concept map all the way back during the game's initial development in 1999. Also funny to note that Kalimdor itself was way smaller.
Yeah, hold on. Dude, look how small Kalimdor is. It's like I guess they took Ulduar and then like turned that into like with Kalimdor and then Uldum, right? And then stuff like that. What fan I had no
of the size of the
Timbermaw and Ashenvale is there too, yeah.
So interesting that Cthulhu maybe wouldn't have been the only old god that players would encounter in Vanilla. No one can agree on what ClassicPlus is, but what I often see are new zones. In the last ones we talked about some unfinished ones here and there, such as Hyjal, Uldum, Quothalas,
classic ones,
and these would eventually be fleshed out in later expansions, and as with Ulduar, but only as an enclosed raid, not a continent, so I think this could have some potential. Really, as far as they got was just this map. They never made the terrain for the zone or any modeling or anything, but it was planned.
There's probably a lot of stuff like that got scrapped and turned into something else, like, you know, it's happened with a lot, I think. I wanted to always see Hyjal and Vanilla, an actual zone of it, maybe one day. Who knows, man? Guys, I'm sure one day ClassicPlus is gonna happen, okay? One day. Don't worry about it, guys. I believe in Blizzard.
In the last video, we talked about the mostly abandoned Ashara zone. There's a cut MOBA battleground there, as well as an abandoned dungeon, and somehow I missed the biggest one, and that's the Timbermaw Gate. In the northwestern area of the zone, you'll find a bunch of furbolgs wandering about, and tucked away in the corner is a very large and imposing gate that looks like it was meant to be something. There are a couple of theories as to what.
We've talked about this before.
First is another dungeon. Ashara, because the developers realized that a zone that's essentially a giant cliff is really annoying to navigate, was kind of abandoned, and the whole...
Yeah, Bay of Storms was supposed to be like a big battleground too. What do you expect of Blizzard to do in ClassicPlus? I mean, honestly, I feel like ClassicPlus is like the big copium thing, right? I mean, they're kind of testing the waters out with Season of Discovery and stuff like that. But dude, it's such a difficult question to really answer in that regard, man. Like, for me, it would be vanilla, but with like more stuff, like very not like crazy like Season of Discovery abilities and stuff like that, but just kind of vanilla, but just with more raids and more dungeons and zones and stuff, right? But I get it, dude. It's the biggest copium, right? We'll see what they do when they test the waters more with Sod. And look at Sod now, all 3 people still on it, love it. I think Sod has been quite successful for what it is. There's a lot of doomers right now in regards to Sod because there's not many people playing and stuff like that. But I think it's like, it's viewed very much as like a testing ground, I think.
Areas ripe for unfinished content, as mentioned earlier. So some theorize that this was intended to be a furbolg dungeon, or maybe possibly even a raid. The other theory, and this one is more interesting, I think, is that this was thought to be the fourth entrance to the Timbermaw Hold, which you may know as the series of tunnels connecting Moonglade, Fellwood, and Winterspring together. Inside the tunnel, you can sort of find this out-of-place wall.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Possibly indicating a quick patch job once the idea was scrapped. And this is where it gets really interesting. Looking at the world map, if this tunnel was indeed connected to Ashara, which is pretty far, it would go right under one of the largest pieces of cut content in vanilla, the zone that we mentioned in the first episode, Mount Hyjal. Now, Hyjal does have a blocked entrance at the end of that elite demon-infested area in Winterspring, where people used to farm for the Eye of Shadow. But as some of you know, when it was finished in Cataclysm, it had those Barrow Den tunnels as part of some quests. So I wonder if maybe the original plan was to connect Ashara here, and halfway between it, it could connect to Mount Hyjal and maybe
I wouldn't even be surprised if that was the
serve
plan.
as an alternate entrance where if you took the time to grind out reputation with the Timbermaw, you could gain safe passage instead of going through this gauntlet of elite demons. If ClassicPlus were to ever be a thing, and they were to implement Hyjal, I think this connecting area, as described, would be a really cool addition and sort of knock out two pieces of cut content at once.
But that would be a lot of travel though. I'm just looking at it now, bro. Like, running from here to there under the, I almost said under the sea, under that in a cave, that would be crazy.
And sort of
a deep run tram, yeah, maybe.
Got two pieces
that's
of
interesting
content
though.
At once. And next we have the Dalaran bubble in the Outtrek Mountains. Dalaran is known as the City of Mages. It was founded after the War of the Ancients during the early days of human civilization, and it became the center for all of the mages in Azeroth, sort of like the Citadel from Game of Thrones, with the Kirin Tor essentially being the Maesters. They remained neutral throughout the various conflicts within the world until the Second War, where they rightfully and understandably aided the Alliance against Horde Filth, and during the...
Bitch! Hey man, listen dude, the Horde is not filth, man. That's actually that's actually messed up. I mean, what the...
Third War, it was attacked directly by Arthas, who summoned Archimonde inside of it, leading to its destruction.
Yeah, and what was Arthas? He was a human, he was an Alliance man. Okay, filthy Horde, by the way.
Lore-wise in vanilla, it's being rebuilt, and of course it wouldn't be until Wrath of the Lich King that it would be converted into a floating city, and it would make its way to Northrend and serve as the main hub for that expansion, and then later the same for Legion. I think that the existing major cities of vanilla are a really big part of its identity, so I wouldn't say this being a hub would be the greatest idea, but if we're talking new raid content post Naxxramas, this could be a contender, I think. Like maybe Archimonde forgot his anime pillow or something. And he comes back for it, and it gets taken over by the Legion. You could have a demon raid, something that vanilla didn't have. Kind of a tangent here, but speaking of cut content and
Bro, I remember this, man. Was this in VOD? I remember being so excited about this, and then just flopped, man.
Bubbles protecting cities. In the Warlords of Draenor expansion, you might remember that Shatrath City had the same giant bubble protecting it, and it was surrounded by an army of elite demons. This ended up being Draenor's missing raid, as evidenced by this early screenshot. So, Draenor today has...
Dude, what a fat L Blizzard took here by not turning the Sea of Sangor into like a zone that you could level in. What a fat L as well, dude. What the heck?
So, Draenor today has the reputation of being one of the weaker expansions for a while, for many reasons. One of them being the fact that there were just 3 raids. Blizzard sort of half-jokingly stated for many years that in order to implement player housing, they would have to sacrifice a raid tier, so some think that the garrisons in Draenor was the reason for this. And in fact, if you go to the graveyard in the garrison, you'll find a marker labeled Raid D tier. Yeah, like I said, kind of a tangent, but kind of funny that there are 2 instances of unfinished content involving cities sheltered by pink bubbles.
Yep.
And speaking of cities, next we have one of the most legendary unfinished areas of vanilla.
I remember when I found this for the first time, it blew my mind.
I can't believe I didn't mention this in the last one, but that's Old Ironforge. So this isn't to be confused with Alpha Ironforge, which is essentially the same as the one we're accustomed to, but with 2 separate levels.
This would just be confusing.
Unlike many other things in this list, this wasn't scrapped due to time constraints, but instead from feedback that it was just too confusing and difficult to navigate, which eventually led to them downsizing it to 1 level. But they did leave behind an artifact from this Alpha Ironforge. In the King's Room, you may have noticed a conspicuous gate
you can
off
get
to
through
the left side. Behind these gates lies a big secret, and there were a few methods of getting into it. The one that I remember is that at a certain point in the game's history, for some reason you could initiate a duel right here next to the mailbox near the bank, and if you started it and you made a beeline all the way around to King Magni's room, you could reset the expiration timer by going near his throne, and then you would have one player stand near the door, and you would either sheep or fear them so they get forced through. And what they would find would be an abandoned tunnel system leading to the core of Ironforge.
It's kind of cool that they let that be in the game, though. They even have like an actual zone for it, too.
Remnant of the original Alpha.
I remember the super sweaty way to get here as well was to go to the old farm, like a little bit north of Ironforge, where, like, you know, that abandoned farm where you gotta like wall jump up the mountain and, you know, go past that bear that sits down in the waterfall. You can go into like a tunnel system there, and then if you time it just correctly, you can do like a sprint with a slow fall, and you can fly all the way into the lava below the Great Forge, and you can jump up through the lava in the Great Forge into the tunnel. But that took a very long time to do.
And this is one of the ultimate secret hidden areas in the game that players would glitch through. Going up the stairs, you have this sort of ritual area, and taking a right at the fork, it sort of loops around, and you have this precarious climb along some ridges overhanging a pit of lava. As players would eventually find, this area would be finished in the Cataclysm expansion, where Magni is crystallized due to a curse, until the Battle of Azeroth, where he starts performing sexual favors for an addictive drug called Azerite.
What does he do?
Champion! I can sense Azerite nearby.
In the last episode, we went over some areas that would eventually be finished in the first expansion, the Burning Crusade, such as Karazhan or Kolthalas. But there is much more. In fact, all of the Outland was planned to be in vanilla, and it was just later pushed back to the Burning Crusade, again due to the time constraints.
Crazy.
But what you're looking at here is the original Hellfire Peninsula, which is as far as they made it. Is pretty recognizable, but at the same time different.
I love those trees.
Here's what the original Dark Portal looked like before they actually added stairs.
To be fair, though, the Outland we got was really good, okay? Like, the Outland that we ended up getting was a lot cooler than this. Like, this is just cool to see for, like, a novelty kind of thing. Like, oh, this is kind of, oh, cool Outland. Like, what could have been, right? But they gave us a good Outland.
Here's Honor Hold.
Yeah.
Zethgor.
This is fun.
The area overall seems to be much more open, and there are more lingering signs of life compared to its Burning Crusade counterpart.
Nah, I don't know. I kind of like the one we got, honestly.
You recognize the reuse of the giant mushrooms from the Eastern Plaguelands. The pools of Agonar are also still present, although his remains are much smaller compared to the final release.
Oh, for sure, Parsh.
Off the map, past a void, can be found some Silithid hides, like what would you find in Silithus, and even some ruins from Tanaris. The zone overall was absolutely huge, and it must have been a really big blow to put so much into it for it to ultimately never see the light of day.
Probably happens
Similarly,
a lot.
we also have what people refer to as Old Outland. This is a much
same thing. This is just cool, right? Like, it's just cool to see.
Smaller entry, and of all places, you'll actually find it in the Dead Mines. By clipping through the wall in the beginning and doing some tricky floating aimed just right, you land on target to a pretty large mass of land, but with really only one thing going on at the center here, with a collection of some of the floating trees that were also found in the old Hellfire Peninsula hovering over this void chasm.
Bling, bling.
So this is clearly just a bit of experimenting by the developers back in the day that didn't really amount to too much, but it became one of the more iconic hidden areas for explorers willing to boundary break. Not really sure for its potential in Classic Plus, but just a cool area that I thought was worth mentioning.
Maybe one of you guys watching right now will be the next developers of the next big thing. Like, cause like WoW started like as a kind of like a you know, like a smaller company. You never know, chat. Maybe we have like a Giga brain watching right now, and they're gonna be the next big thing.
But zones weren't the only thing that were pushed back.
Who knows?
In fact, as far as pre-alpha, it was planned that players would be able to level from 1 to 70 in vanilla through those missing zones. And one of them was going to be the Dragon Isles. So in the latest expansion, Dragonflight, players have begun to explore the finished version of these isles. But as evidenced by this early development screenshot, they were supposed to be in the game in 2004. Cool. In fact, there even exists a map. As for why it was abandoned,
that's why there's that little spot above Strathlome. Oh my god, makes sense.
In fact, there even exists a map. As for why it was abandoned, as John Statz described in his book, The Warcraft Diary, it just didn't really make sense in the lore since the dragons are mostly good. You have Alex Straza as the Red Ranger, Ysera is the green, Malygos the blue, and Asdormu yellow. Did you know that the Power Rangers was 2 shows spliced together? The action portion was actually a Japanese program called Super Sentai, and then the teenage drama portion was filmed to give them backstories and personalities. Anyways, point being here, the villain Dragonflight at the time was Deathwing, and the Black Dragonflight, whom players had encounters with via the Onyxia and Nefarian fights. So having an entire continent with just one Dragonflight as an enemy felt like it would be too repetitive for players. Shoutouts to the Warlords of Draenor, by the way. And probably due to time constraints, the whole thing was scrapped until, as it turns out, 2022 with the Dragonflight expansion. They did get as far as some model and terrain work for the zone, with some completely unique buildings that never made it into the game.
That's pretty cool
enough. And as evidenced by the screenshot, there's even to be a raid here. I can only imagine that this giant palace would have been it. It's actually an absolutely enormous zone. So again, it must have been a pretty big blow to put all of this work into it, only ending up having to scrap it.
Happens a lot.
But that's about it for this episode. Thanks for letting me be your tour guide. If you have more stuff that you think is worthy for coverage, feel free to leave it in the comments. But I think between these 2 episodes that I put out recently, if SOD were to ever go down a Classic Plus route, which who knows if it'll happen, I think it's safe to say that there's no shortage of content that was planned by the original developers that they can tap into. But even if none of that happens, I hope you at least found the video interesting.
It was.
I think exploration is honestly sort of a lost art in today's goal-oriented player base. And I kind of feel like doing more stuff like this, so you can expect more videos similar to this in the future.
Cool.
We'll probably go expansion by expansion, and we'll look at...
Wait, was this supposed to be a thing? Gorehowl, the Hellscream's Reign? What? To gain Warsong, which increased cleave for the whole team by 120. Okay.
Everything that ended up on the cutting room floor. Regardless of all of that, like the video if you liked it, because I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Good video! Honestly, I mean, yeah, as he said, man, who the heck knows if we're even gonna get Classic Plus at this point, how it's gonna be if we do get it.
For now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video.
But I think it's fun watching, and it is interesting. And there was actually a thing I didn't know there, like with the tunnels and stuff like that. That's kind of dank. Good video though from that season. It's kind of fun watching these, so hope you guys enjoyed as well. World of Warcraft 2 will save everything. The World of Warcraft 2 thing is like the biggest copium ever, man. One day they'll do it, guys. One day they'll do it. But who knows? Maybe they will.